Dude, I used to take forever to prep for a session. I am talking hours sitting in front of a blank Google Doc while the cursor blinks at me like a mocking wink. And all the stuff that I did write down didn't come up at all during the session. Sound familiar? Yeah, I've been there more times than I care to admit. But I don't think the problem is that you're bad at prep. It's just that nobody ever told you what you're actually supposed to be prepping. Because here's a truth that took me an embarrassing length of time to realize. Most of the stuff that GMs stress themselves out over, you don't need it. Like, at all. What you do need, I can fit into 3 simple words. And because I'm a sucker for a good mnemonic device, they all start with the letter P. They are premises, people, and pushes. That's it. That's the video. I'm kidding. Obviously, we are going to dig into all of these. And I truly believe that by the end of it, your next session is going to feel less like you're cramming for a test and more like you're actually prepared for the session, which is kind of the whole point of prep in the first place. Now, the first P has a little bit of a double meaning, so stick around to see what I'm talking about. First, if you're starting a new campaign, or if you're mid-campaign and things are a little blurry and have started to lose their shape, I want you to do something with me. I want you to write the starting premise of your campaign in as few sentences as possible. This practice is known as a log line. If you've never heard the term before, it's basically a 1 to 3 sentence pitch that introduces the premise and teases the central conflict. Think of them like the little block of text underneath a Netflix listing. I can't believe I just said that. Now, a good logline gives you just enough so that you're drawn in, but not so much that you tell the entire story before it begins. I'll give you an example so you can see what I mean. A man visits his estranged wife on Christmas Eve, only to find himself being the only thing standing between a group of sophisticated terrorists and their hostages. That's Die Hard, right? That's it. That's the premise of the movie, summed up in just a few short sentences. Let's try another one. A group of scientists have recreated prehistoric dinosaurs and decided to make an amusement park out of them. Things go terribly wrong. Jurassic Park. It sets up the initial premise without telling you the entire story. Now here's why this specifically matters for you, the game master. Now don't miss this part because a lot of people do, and it causes a lot of issues. You are not a novelist or a screenwriter or a director. Your job as the game master is to be the facilitator of a fictional world. And that means that you are never plotting your campaigns in advance. You are not storyboarding your game out. And you're not really even coming up with all of the cool activities for your players to do. Your job as a game master is not that of a service provider. How do I know this? Because I've been that guy before. I spent so much time building this perfectly constructed series of events for the players to go through, and the moment that the players were given freedom to interact, it all went to mess. But loglines? Loglines are not your plot. They are instead the first P, which is premises, your premise for the game. Your premise is your North Star. It's the foundation on which the rest of the game is built upon. Your premise reminds everyone at the table what this game is about. Okay, so we know what a premise is, but what does it look like in practice? Let's workshop one real quick. Say you want to run a seafaring campaign. You could say something like, a ragtag group of debt-ridden sailors takes a job that sounds just a little too good to be true, and quickly discovers that the cargo they've been hired to transport is the most wanted thing in all of the known world. That's not a plot. I have no idea what happens in this campaign yet, and neither do you. But I know the tone, I know the conflict, and I get a pretty good idea of what the stakes of this game are. And when your players decide to sell that cargo to the highest bidder, you're not lost. You're simply reacting to the premise. The cargo is still the most wanted thing in the world, and the consequences still follow the characters wherever they go. So, take 10 or 15 minutes and write out your logline. 1 paragraph, 3 sentences max. And here's an interesting test. If you can't summarize the premise in 3 sentences, that's useful information. It tells you that your premise might be a little bit murkier than you thought. and making it clear will work wonders for your game. So earlier I said that premises has two meanings. What's the other one? The second meaning of premises is premises, the physical location, the area, the scene where the game takes place. This one's deceptively simple, but it's something that a lot of newer GMs get really tangled up in. They feel like they need to have the whole world built before they can start. And eventually you have 15 Wikipedia articles open on tectonic plate shifting and evaporation rates. I'm going to let you off the hook right now. You don't need any of that. All you need to worry about is where the characters are right now and what's immediately around them. Nail down the important landmarks of the place that the characters are in. If you're playing your run-of-the-mill fantasy game, your town's probably going to have a tavern. What's the tavern's name? There's probably going to be a blacksmith. What's the blacksmith's name? Cover the bare essentials and let the players fill in the rest with their imagination. You don't need to map out the tavern because you know what's usually in a tavern. There's a bar, there's tables, there's chairs, and there's a whole lot of alcohol. Your city probably has a market district. Is there a place of worship that's clearly doing better financially than the rest of the town? Is there a harbor? What does the harbor smell like? Make what's in front of the players clear, and as the characters interact with the world, you can bump up the resolution, as it were. Okay, so you've got your premises, your big idea, and your starting location. But a world without people in it is like a sandbox without toys in it. There's nothing left to do but start eating the sand. Okay, that probably doesn't make sense, but you get what I'm saying. And that brings us to the second P. People. Your NPCs. The folks that the player characters are going to interact with, talk to, argue with, fall in love with, betray, and occasionally throw from the rooftops. Now, there's a trap that I see a lot of game masters fall into, and I myself fell into it quite often when I first started GMing. Imagine the players walk into a tavern, and you have this long document laying out the entire backstory of the tavern keeper. It's got his childhood trauma, his 3 kids, his fear of birds, the whole thing. Only for the players to glance at him for 2 seconds and never talk to him again. And you just spent 2 hours on a bird phobia that your characters don't care about. The trap is thinking you need a fully realized NPC for every single interaction. Here's what I would recommend. Pick your big ticket NPCs, the ones who actually have sway in the area the party's currently in. Give these big ticket NPCs connections to one another. Now, I want you to hear this. I said important NPCs, not invulnerable. The character's actions have consequences. And because we're not trying to plot out a story, the death of an important NPC is met with the realistic reaction of the world around it.
Yeah, cool, man. But how am I actually supposed to come up with these NPCs?
Here's a fun trick that I do in my games. Think about a person that you know in real life. Not a famous person, someone that you know personally. Borrow one thing from that person. Take a mannerism or a verbal habit. Chances are pretty good that nobody at your table is going to know you based the nervous merchant off of a cousin you have back in Wisconsin. But they'll definitely feel it. Now, here's something that I wish somebody would have told me way, way earlier. And I don't want you to miss this. Listen close. Before your session, make a list of names. 10 to 15 names, categorized however makes the most sense for your session. Male names, female names, fantasy names, ship names, family names, faction names. There are plenty of resources online for you to get a whole host of different names to use. And when the characters inevitably ask, "What's your name?" all you have to do is look down at the list, pick one, and write it down. Because if you're not ready, all of your NPCs are going to be named Gary. No offense to the Garys out there. Okay, we may have names for the unprepped NPCs, but how do I know who these people are? Now, don't panic. Instead, lean on archetypes. Now, an archetype is just a recognizable pattern of behavior that gives the characters something to chew on in that moment. The exhausted city guard who's just trying to get through his shift. The merchant who's suspicious because she's been robbed one too many times. The old guy who definitely knows more than he's letting on. Though these archetypes might seem shallow at first, if the characters express interest in those NPCs, the same way that we up the resolution of the surroundings, we up the resolution on that NPC. Write down the NPC's name and give them a couple of interesting details. If the characters dig, you add more layers. If not, you leave it be. So, premises. You know your North Star and your starting location. People. You know who matters and you have the tools to handle the ones you didn't plan for. But here's the part that brings it home. You can have the most vividly rendered world and the most intriguing and engaging NPCs. You can have a premise so clean you can slap it on a billboard tomorrow, and your session can still fall flat if nothing is happening. This brings us to the third P, and honestly, this is the one I think I'm most excited to talk about. Pushes. Let me start off by telling you what a push is not, because I think this is the clearest way to understand it. A push is not a plot hook. It's not the carrot that you dangle in front of the player's face to say, hey, guys, the story's this way. You're not trying to push the players towards any specific direction, because the players can totally feel it. It starts to feel like you're playing a video game where you have to follow the glowing objective marker to advance the story. And that's not what we're here to do. A push is different. A push is simply something that happens. That's it. Something happens in the world, the characters are present for it, and they react to it. Think about your own life for a second. You're walking down the street and you hear two people arguing loudly outside of a cafe. That's just a thing that happened. Nobody put it there specifically for you. You can stop and see what's going on. You can pretend you didn't see it. What you do from then on is completely your choice. The world doesn't necessarily care which one you pick. It keeps moving forward either way. That is the function of a push. The world keeps moving. Now, of course, pushes exist on a spectrum. You have smaller pushes. A door at the end of a dark corridor creaks open. A merchant at the market stares for just a little bit too long. A loud sloshing from underneath the ship. Now, these pushes aren't jumping up and down, waving their hands in the air, saying, "Investigate me!" They just exist. It makes the world feel like there's more going on than just what the characters are focused on right now. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you have bigger pushes. In-your-face, undeniable events that probably are going to demand a response from the characters. A brawl erupts in the middle of the tavern. A nobleman's carriage crashes right in front of the party. The space station you're on is torn in half by a rogue gravity fluctuation, and you've got about 90 seconds before the atmosphere vents. Both kinds of pushes are valuable. The subtle ones create a layered and living world, while your big ones create urgency and momentum. Good sessions usually have a mix of both. Cool, so we know what pushes are, but how do we come up with them? Cool thing is, you don't have to come up with your pushes from scratch. You've actually done most of the work already. Look to your premises, look to your people, and ask yourself, if this world is actually alive and doing its thing, what events would be happening right now? Your NPCs that you fleshed out earlier, they have desires. They have secrets. What might they do in the pursuit of those desires? That action becomes a push. Your setting has a tone and a conflict baked into the logline. What kind of events are consistent with that conflict? Those are your pushes. Let's go back to the example of our seafaring campaign from earlier. The party is carrying valuable and dangerous cargo. The big-ticket NPC is this mysterious dockmaster who orchestrated the job and definitely knows more than he's letting on. Here are a few examples of some pushes that I might come up with. Another ship skirts along the horizon flying an unfamiliar flag. One of the crew members is found below deck, not dead, but paralyzed in fear, and he won't talk about what's scaring him. The ship is suddenly jostled by a strong force moving underwater. None of these are necessarily plot hooks demanding that the party do any specific thing. Instead, all of them are events that feel consistent within the world that we've built. The important thing is, I'm not coming up with the intended outcome, I'm just nudging the players a little bit. The party can engage with any of these events how they see fit, and I don't have a particular outcome in mind. I'm just presenting the event to the characters. Now, obviously, if you're presenting a push, you need to think about the source of that push. What caused this massive warship to be jostled on the high seas? Who opened the creaking door down the dark hallway? It's like I said earlier, your job as the game master is not to push your characters towards a specific goal that you have in mind. Your job is to present a believable and consistent world for the player characters to interact with. And as they interact with the world, your job is to react to their interaction. If the players see the ship on the horizon and immediately alter course to avoid it, that's great. How does this unknown ship react? Does it alter its course? Does it start plowing straight towards the player character ship? You don't know yet, but you will find out when it becomes relevant. Simply put, react. You're not prepping out a specific story. Instead, you are hosting a believable and consistent world, one where your players feel at liberty to interact with and move around. The mindset of your players should never be, what does the game master want us to do this session? Instead, their thought process ought to be, what does my character do? That is the difference between a predetermined railroad and a true living world. Before your next session, I want you to do 3 things. First, write your logline. 1 to 3 sentences, premise and conflict, get your North Star clear, and nail down where the session is starting, just the immediate surroundings. Second, identify your big ticket NPCs. Gather up a list of names, know your archetypes, and lean on them if things go south. And third, come up with 3 to 5 pushes. Remember, you're not coming up with plot hooks. You're coming up with things that happen in the world. Draw from your premise and from your people, and just let your world behave like a world. And that's your whole prep session. May take you 45 minutes, may take you an hour and a half if you're really getting into it, but now it's focused. You're putting your attention onto the things that actually matter. There is a tendency in this hobby, especially in those who are well-meaning and want to do good at this, to over-prepare, to try to account for every little contingency and try to build these elaborate structures in your notes that your players will immediately knock over the second they're given 1 iota of freedom. And I get it. That impulse comes from a good place. It means you care. You want your friends to have a good time playing this game with you. But the players at your table shouldn't be coming for this elaborate story structure. They should instead be coming to the table to put themselves into the shoes of their characters. They should want this feeling that the world that they're in is real and that their choices truly matter. And when you approach prep from this idea of plotting out a story, you inevitably train your players to become little more than audience members. And that's not fun for anybody. If you want to avoid that human dice roller syndrome, then keep the 3 Ps in mind. Premises, people, and pushes. Build a believable and consistent world, let your players play in it, and let the world react to that interaction. Simple as. Dude, I had such a blast chatting with you today. Thank you all so much for watching this video. And as always, I have resources linked down in the description. If you want to see a real-world application of this style of prep, then go check it out. And see if you can place the 3 Ps in this person's prep. Now, I gotta warn you, all that prep is gonna go to waste if you don't have this one important thing figured out at your table. So click this video to see what I'm talking about. I will see you all in the next one. Peace and God bless.